Guys, I'm just going to give it a few more seconds to get some more attendees jump on and we'll kick off. I'll try to keep it to maybe 15, 20 minutes with some Q&A afterwards. Morning, guys. Welcome to our webinar this morning. Before I start, just a quick disclaimer. The information that I'm talking about today is just general advice. It's not going to be specific towards an application per se. I'll cover a little bit of policy, just a few trends I'm seeing as well. But yeah, just keep in mind that it is general advice. Don't take everything at face value in terms of applying to applications. If you need advice for an application, do reach out to me as well. Excellent. So yeah, just wanted to run through your agenda. So I'll cover just a bit of job checks, just a bit of a recap on the process. I'll cover some areas in terms of employment agreements, also advertising requirements, ANSCO, work and income, and then some Q&As afterwards. If you do have any questions, chuck it into the Q&A box as well, and I'll go through the questions at the very end. Give me 1 sec. Sorry, just lost it. Perfect. Cool. So yeah, there's a quick recap of job check process. I think a lot of you may know what the process involves, but I'll follow a quick recap, just given things have changed quite a bit over the last probably 3-4 months, the way immigration assess things. So yeah, just recapping quickly. So a job check, of course, is based on either advertising the role locally in New Zealand. If the role is on the green list, you then have to advertise, of course, but that's only if the overseas candidate meets the requirement. So I have noticed a bit of a trend where an employer submits their own job check and they see the roles on the green list and they use the green list to actually submit the job check. And then when it comes to the actual visa application, you find out the candidate doesn't actually meet the green list requirement. So keep in mind, if you do the job check based on the green list, the candidate overseas has to meet those requirements. So if you're looking at a civil engineer, for instance, they've got to have a Washington or Sydney Court degree. If they don't, they've got to go through an assessment process. Similar, if you're looking at, say, a motor mechanic, but for instance, they have to have a trade certificate. And if they do have one from overseas, they have to get it assessed by NZQA before they meet the green list requirements. So keep that in mind. So if you're doing that job check on the green list, they've got to meet the requirements. And of course, if you pay twice the median wage, which is $59.32 an hour, you don't have to advertise the role either. But I think for general kind of pop, most employers do advertise the roles. In terms of the advertising as well, I have noticed Immigration New Zealand are coming back now to ask for a lot more evidence than they used to do. So just keep that in mind when you do advertise a role, that immigration will ask for the stats for the role. They'll ask you how many applicants were local, citizens and residents, and why they were not suitable. So keep that in mind when you advertise. In terms of the advertising requirements, it is 14 days across the board for ANSCO 1 or level 1 ANSCO to level 3, and of course 21 days if it's level 4 and 5 ANSCO. Also with the advertising requirements for level 4 and 5s, you also have to engage with work and income too. So that's a new thing that's come into place. We usually have it back in the day for essential skills. It has come back into place now for level 4 and 5 ANSCOs. There's another requirement is that the advertising's got to be closed off before the job check is submitted. So just keep in mind, so it's got to be closed off. It's got to be within 90 days as well before the job check submitted. Same goes for work and income. So the work and income engagement has to be done before the job check is submitted. I'll get more to that in a second as well, because it does come into play when you are doing a job check and the ANSCO you've selected might not be the correct one, but I'll get to that a bit later on as well. Just wanted to quickly cover as well there's some areas we're seeing in the employment agreements. Sorry guys, I've got a puppy behind me. So yeah, with the employment agreements, we've noticed immigration coming back with RFIs on quite a few job checks. Biggest couple of things we're seeing is there was a change in employment law in New Zealand in June last year in regards to personal grievance. And what I've noticed, immigration are asking employers to update these clauses. So with the personal grievance, so any personal grievance has to be raised within 90 days. If it's a sexual harassment clause, it can be raised within 12 months. So when you do write your employment agreement, just make sure that the personal grievance section is correct as per employment law. We're also seeing quite a few KiwiSaver clauses in contracts for visa holders. Of course, visa holders aren't eligible for KiwiSaver. I suggest taking that out of contracts for visa holders. We're also seeing 90-day trial periods in contracts too. So I know 90-day trial periods are back in terms of employment law, but when it comes to immigration law, it's not acceptable for AEWV visa holders. So instead of using a trial period, you can use a probation period. So just keep that in mind. So take off the 90-day trial periods, use the probation period if you want to have that in as well. In terms of bonding agreements, also notice a bit of a trend where job check is done based on a sample agreement, perhaps, but once the visa application is submitted, that contract differs. And a lot of times we're seeing the job check is done with just a stock standard sample and not specific towards a candidate. But then once a candidate submits the visa, that contract then includes a bonding agreement. So just keep in mind, so if you do use a bonding agreement, which it is allowed, you're allowed to bond people in for relocation costs, etc. Just keep in mind if you are doing that, include that in the job check and the visa application. So it's got to have to be the same contract and both the job check and the visa application. That's across the board in terms of working hours, salary range, and bonding as well. In terms of the advertising requirements, so just a bit of a recap on this. Even it's been 2 years since we had the AEWV scheme come into place, and we are still seeing employers not advertising correctly, when it comes to visa or if it is for visa purposes. So just a bit of a recap. So just include on the advertisement, you've got to include the working hours. So make sure you specify the working hours. You've got to specify the salary range or the wage range as well. Also have to list the key requirements for the role. So this, if you're looking for, for argument's sake, a motor mechanic, specify the requirements you want for that person to meet. I'd normally suggest kind of looking what ANSCO requires and having it based on ANSCO. If you're looking at a level 1 ANSCO role, it's normally a bachelor's degree of 5 years experience. If it's a level 2 ANSCO, you're looking at diploma or 3 years experience, same as level 3 ANSCO, a level 4 or 3 years experience. What I would suggest though is don't set the requirements too high. So if you're advertising for, I'm going to use an example as a naval architect. If you're advertising on secret having for a naval architect, don't set the requirements too high. Don't ask for 15 years experience, or even maybe 10. If you do ask for a higher threshold than is maybe on ANSCO, when you do the job check, what I'd suggest is do a letter and actually explain to Immigration New Zealand why you need these requirements. If the role is super specialized or it's the top level of a certain role, tell that to Immigration New Zealand. So at least they know why you're asking for 10 years or 15 years. Because what I've noticed now is over the last few months, they are coming back with RFIs asking to, first of all, why you're asking for these requirements, and secondly, to explain as well. This with the platforms of advertising, there's multiple platforms you can use. Seek Trade being the 2 biggest ones. You've got Jura, you've got My Job Space. There's quite a few other ones. In terms of LinkedIn, so LinkedIn can be used as solely LinkedIn, but it depends on the role. Policy doesn't really specify that LinkedIn can or can't be used. But what I've done in the past is, if the role is for a role that will actually involve using LinkedIn. So if you've got a role for in a business development manager or a sales role, you could perhaps only use LinkedIn to advertise. I'd always suggest to use the bigger platforms just to prevent any issues. But if you have perhaps only used LinkedIn, it can be accepted depending on the role. In terms of the advertising outcome, like I mentioned before as well, I've noticed Immigration New Zealand are asking now for evidence of the outcome of the advertising. Previously, you submit an ad to Immigration New Zealand, and on the job check form, you just put in the stats. 10 applications, 4 local, none suitable, and that was it. They are asking now for evidence of that as well. So what I suggest to do is, if you do get local applicants that might look suitable, do go for the process of interviewing them. And of course, what if you do interview them and find they're not suitable, you can do a spreadsheet or a letter outlining why they're not suitable. And I suggest this for every job check that's based on advertising. From now moving forward, I think immigration will RFI every single job check and ask for evidence of that as well. ANSCO. So ANSCO's back. I'm not sure if any of you have noticed, but ANSCO is back now. 6 months, 12 months ago, Immigration New Zealand didn't really care about ANSCO too much in terms of job checks. You select the ANSCO, you say, I need this is a role, these are the requirements, immigration accepted at the face value. ANSCO now, though, is back in terms of they are doing assessments. If you look at the policies, so policies have always been the same. So policies always kind of mention that, they can do a substantial match for ANSCO. They haven't done it though, but they are now. So keep in mind, when you do select an ANSCO on a job check, Immigration New Zealand will do an assessment based on the job description that's submitted for the role, and not check and see whether it matches the ANSCO. Just a small typo there, sorry guys, I just reckon a small typo, my bad. But yeah, just with the ANSCO, so make sure the ANSCO you do select is correct and that it matches the role. It doesn't have to be an exact match, but it's the closest match you can get. In terms of, so like I said before with the ANSCO, so ANSCO level 1 to 3, you're pretty much safe in terms of you do 14 days advertising, you submit the ANSCO, so the job check, select the ANSCO, you're fine. If you do select an ANSCO at level 2 or 3, but it's borderline, there's maybe a risk it might be downgraded to level 4. Just keep that in mind, because if immigration come back to you and they send an RFI to you, and their assessment is like, well, the ANSCO you've selected is incorrect. We believe the ANSCO matches a level 4 or level 5 occupation. They won't give you any time to do the work and income engagement. So if the ANSCO is borderline, I'd suggest you maybe do the work and income engagement beforehand. Or if the ANSCO is borderline, do a submission and say and tell Immigration New Zealand why you reckon it's a level 2 or 3 ANSCO, not a level 4 ANSCO. An example of this, so we've had a couple of RFIs recently for service advisors, so automotive service advisors. We've selected an ANSCO, which is a level 2 ANSCO, which is a customer service manager, and underneath that it's quite a few specializations. So we've used that as a level 2 ANSCO, and we've got an RFI on both of those. Immigration came back and said it's more, it's more in line with level 4. So we've gone back with a submission, and they came through fine. But just keep in mind, if it is borderline, or you think there's a risk it might be downgraded, either do a submission, just say why it's got to be level 2 for ANSCO, or if you think it might come back and say it's level 4, do the work and income engagement beforehand. Because Immigration New Zealand, if they do RFI, if they send an RFI to you and you can't actually submit a response to alleviate their concerns, they will decline the job check, and you've got to redo the whole thing from the start. There's a work and income as well. So, as you may know, so work and income's back. There's actually, if you go to the work and income or MSD website, they've got a link for employers, and then through that, there's a portal where you lodge a vacancy. A couple of outcomes on this. So you go, you lodge the vacancy, you specify the requirements you want, the role you have, the wage as well. Two things will happen. They'll come back to you, fairly quickly to say, well, there's no one local who can do the job. Let's give you a report. Or the second outcome is to actually list the vacancy, and it might send some candidates to you as well. Just wanted to make a quick comment on this, because I know there was I believe Erica Sanford, Minister, had a speech at the EMA, maybe last week before. So a bit of data on this. Apparently, only 2% of jobs that are listed by employers who have migrants in mind. So only 2% of the work and income listings actually result in someone local being hired. If an employer has a candidate overseas that they actually want to hire. Whereas if employers go to work and income solely for the purpose of hiring locals, the success rate's about 60%. So it's quite a big difference. And I think that's part of the reason why they have made the changes where employers have to engage with work and income, just so that they can give, especially when it comes to lower skilled workers, they really want to see an effort from employers locally to actually employ local if they can. But in saying that, if you've got a role that's level 4 or 5 hands code, and there's no one local, you can still go ahead and do the engage with work and income and advertise as well, and you can still get a job check approved based on that. Just wanted to touch base on salaried hours. So, if you've got someone on wage, you said it doesn't really matter too much. But I have noticed quite a few RFIs when it comes to contracts that have salaried hours, especially when it comes to overtime clauses. So I know a lot of industries that have salaried hours do not have overtime clauses, and they also do not have maximum hours in the contracts too. So just keep this in mind. If you do have someone on a salaried position, immigration will come back and ask you to confirm the maximum hours. If you're not able to put that into a contract, what I suggest to do is to do a supporting letter confirming the work hours per week, the expected work hours, which is 37.5, 40, 45, whatever it is. But also make it clear to Immigration New Zealand that if someone does work overtime, that their wage won't drop below the median wage threshold. So what immigration are looking at is if someone's on 65,000 a year or 70,000 a year, at 40 hours a week, if they work 43 hours or 45 hours a week, they will drop below the median wage threshold. So keep that in mind. That if you have someone on salary, you've got to make sure that they stay above the threshold. That also applies to the green list. If you've got an auditor on the green list, which the threshold's 41.09 an hour, that's about 85,300 per year. If someone's on the green list, say down 86,000 a year on a 40-hour work week, if they work 41 hours a week, they'll drop below the green list threshold. So keep that in mind. So you either need to try and add the maximum hours in the contracts, which I know a lot of employers don't like doing that. Or if you can't do that, maybe add an overtime clause, which is maybe time and lieu, which is acceptable by Immigration New Zealand. Or if you can't do that, just explain to Immigration New Zealand, well, this is the industry you work in. We do, 40 weeks of the year we do normal hours. 5 weeks we might do overtime, and then the other few weeks we might do a few extra hours. So if you can't do any overtime clauses in your contracts on maximum hours, you've just got to make sure that across the year the amount of hours they work is still above the threshold. Perfect, cool. So that's pretty much all for today. I'm just gonna quick check if there's any questions in the Q&A box. Nothing in there. Anything in the chat box? Nothing in there either. If you guys have any questions, chuck it into the Q&A real quick. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll send a recording out to all the attendees and the people that registered to this as well. And then if you do have questions, of course, flick a note through on email or give me a call. Perfect. Cool. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a good afternoon. Chat soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.